Hey there, I'm Paige Griffith, your host and an attorney for small business owners. I help online businesses and creatives get legally legit in no time. This podcast is all about the legal and the Paige behind it. I'll break down and simplify legal talk while providing practical business guidance every step of the way. And after over a decade in the entrepreneur space and becoming a mother, I'll also be sprinkling in tips for running a business and giving you a glimpse behind the scenes of what life's really like. As a gentle reminder and disclaimer, I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. So be sure to seek legal counsel for personalized advice. Welcome to the Legal Paige Podcast. I know that you've put your heart, time, and energy into starting a business. You're getting great reviews and hitting your stride. But for whatever reason, you end up getting an angry client. Maybe there was a scheduling conflict or a communication breakdown, or things just weren't turning out as expected. And now they're threatening to leave you a bad review on Facebook or Google or Yelp. So the question here is, can your client contract prevent a bad review? Maybe you've heard of a non-disparagement clause. You know, that part of some contracts that says you can't talk badly about somebody else or their business. Is that the answer? As an attorney and contract creator for small business owners, I hear this question often. And I help photographers and wedding planners and many other business owners that value client reviews. So let's talk about what you can and cannot do legally within your client contract. Let's start off with what is a non-disparagement clause. So to disparage means to talk negatively about someone or something. This can hurt a person or a business's reputation, as we all know. And a non-disparagement clause is a part of a contract that stops someone from bad-mouthing another person or a company, a product, or a service. A non-disparagement clause within contracts is extremely useful, but mainly for employers and business-to-business relationships. For example, we include non-disparagement clauses in our employment contract template and independent contractor agreement. So this is to prevent any disgruntled workers from talking badly about your business. And we've also written out a non-disparagement clause template that you can add to such worker contracts. But this is a biggie here. Non-disparagement clauses do not belong in client contracts, the ones between you and client booking you for your services. So for example, if you are a wedding photographer, it's actually not legal to attempt to prevent the spouses from posting a review about the wedding gallery that you sent to them. So why can't you use a non-disparagement clause to prevent a bad review? When you start working with a client, it's actually really important to set clear expectations and protections for both you and your clients in a good service-based contract that they sign. And if you decide to stop working together at some point during the journey of when you initially booked them to when you're performing services or thereafter, it's essential to protect you and your business with a cancellation contract. And if you decide to stop working together, you or your client, for whatever reason, if they're voluntarily canceling or you have to cancel for a personal reason, of course, in that respect, it's essential to protect you and your business with a cancellation contract. Sometimes people oftentimes call this a termination contract as well. But remember, in the client contract and the termination or cancellation contract, those are used interchangeably. We call them cancellation contracts here at the Legal Page because just for connotation purposes, it doesn't sound as aggressive. And I think clients are more likely to sign a cancellation agreement versus like a termination agreement. Okay, back to my point here. You cannot use either of those contracts to silence a client from writing a truthful review, good or bad. And that is because customer reviews are protected by the Consumer Review Fairness Act. And I'm going to call that the CRFA for the remainder of this podcast episode. So the government established in the CRFA in 2016 this law so that within a contract, you cannot prevent disparaging language as long as it's truthful. And maybe you're taking it as disparaging language, but your client is just trying to post their honest review of working with you or their perspective on the situation. Again, I know a lot of you are probably thinking here, okay, but then clients can write whatever they want. Essentially, within the CRFA, this federal law, it makes it so that a contract provision is automatically void if it tries to do three things. One, stop an individual from sharing a review about goods or services or conduct of somebody who is part of the contract. Two, charges a fee or a penalty for providing that type of review. And three, transfers ownership of an individual's review, with some exceptions. So, the CRFA stops businesses from using what is called gag clauses, or contract clauses that prevent customers from leaving honest reviews. Honest in their perspective, we know it's subjective here. But that is what this law is trying to prevent, is a bunch of businesses only trying to have 5-star glowing reviews when customers may want to share feedback of them working with you without fear of any type of punishment or breach of contract. And this helps customers honestly make more informed decisions, is kind of the basis of this federal law. But based on this law, what courts can't do is they cannot enforce a clause that limits clients from leaving an honest review, even if that review is negative. If a business violates this federal act, the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, and state attorneys can actually legally sue you as a business owner under the CRFA. Now that you kind of have that basis of why I'm saying non-disparagement clauses do not belong in client contracts and for most purposes do not belong in cancellation contracts, I want to talk about limits to this review freedom that clients have that you're probably like, whoa, Paige. I feel like they are then kind of given this silver platter to leave me all kinds of bad reviews and use that as arsenal a little bit of what they would try to get with maybe a partial refund or a full refund, like threatening us in some way. Like, I know that I can leave reviews, so maybe I'm going to leave all these bad reviews if you don't give me a refund or partial refund in this cancellation situation. So there are kinds of reviews that you can restrict. So keep in mind that CRFA applies only to consumer reviews. So you can use non-disparagement clauses again in employment contracts, independent contractor agreements, or business-to-business contracts of any type. So even though you think your clients have a lot of freedom here under the consumer protection laws, federally and statewide play, your clients don't have unlimited freedom to post whatever they want about your business. There are some limitations to what types of reviews that the CRFA protects. So, for example, the Act doesn't stop you from restricting reviews that are defamatory content, factually false statements that can cause harm. So you, of course, can limit those types of things or take action against someone if they are posting defamatory reviews and content about your business. If it reveals any type of confidential information, I'm going to get into confidentiality clauses and their place in cancellation contracts here in a second. The Act doesn't stop you from restricting reviews that are harassing, abusive, obscene, or discriminatory, are unrelated to your business's goods or services, and are clearly false or misleading, or are unlawful for other reasons. Thus, what I am trying to say here is while clients can share honest opinions in reviews, anything that falls into those unlawful categories is not protected under the CRFA. So I've told you that you can't use client contracts and most likely cancellation contracts to put in non-disparagement clauses there and try to prevent clients from leaving bad reviews. And I always say this about contracts. You can try to put in any type of clause to your contract and it may be void under federal or state law. And you can try to put in clauses in your contract to prevent somebody from doing something, but you are never, ever, ever going to control someone's actions. If they want to leave you a bad review or a negative review or a false review, they will. It's all about how you respond to such review. Which leads me to my best tips on how to deal with bad client reviews. Negative reviews are honestly what I like to call a reality in today's day and age. And with consumer protection laws at play, it's just something that we all have to face. Consumers can post reviews when they work with you. Still, it's no fun when a client relationship goes sour and no one likes to see a bad review pop up on their business page. Sometimes client reviews really do feel unfair, upsetting, or honestly just massively exaggerated. We can all agree there. If you, though, respond to review online, what I mainly want you to do, though, is respond to the review. And here are my best tips on doing that. Respond in a calm, professional, and collected way. Use facts, not emotions. For example, here is how a wedding photographer could respond to a bad review related to photo edits. They could say something along the lines of, I am sorry to hear that you weren't happy with the editing of your photos, but I know these photos are important to you. My editing that I supplied to you was consistent with the style that I've posted on my website, galleries, social media, and all of the collateral that I gave to you prior to booking. As I mentioned in our email communication, I am more than happy to adjust the editing on up to 10 photos complimentary for you. And I hope this will help. Or you can say, I was happy to adjust the editing on up to 10 photos for you complimentary. And this is also in accordance with the contract that we signed. You're leading with facts there. You're also responding in a professional manner. You're showing to other clients that may be looking at this bad review how you responded, that you were able to adjust things accordingly. And you were also stating, this is in line with my same editing style. I'm not just going to change this because you asked me to. Ultimately, if you do end up with a negative review, I just want you to try to keep it in perspective. After working with many, many creatives and service providers, I can tell you that negative reviews are not usually as big of a deal as we think. People are used to seeing a few negative reviews. We're not talking here like a bunch of 0, 1-star reviews. Those feel a little bit fake, but maybe a 3 or 4-star review for even the best companies. In fact, I think having less than 5 stars can make your business seem more real. A business that only has a bunch of 5 stars seems a little bit fake nowadays, right? So if I see that 4.5 star, I'm like, okay, this is a legitimate business. I need to go look at what those 3 and 4 stars are saying, and I can decipher if I want to work with this business myself. And especially if I'm seeing a bunch of responses from that business owner, I know they care. I know they value their client and the services that they're providing. So really here, what I'm trying to say is think of customer reviews and your response to such reviews as an opportunity to address concerns and improve your business as a whole. So focus on seeking out customer feedback in emails by trying to prevent bad reviews from happening online, asking happy clients to leave you reviews to combat some of those negative reviews, and then, of course, responding in a calm, professional manner. Lead with facts, not emotions. Now let's get back to what if a bad review is 100% false and I wasn't able to prevent this completely false review with a non-disparagement clause because you told me not to put it in my client contract. For the most part, as long as the review, again, is truthful and based on the consumer's subjective, honest experience, it is protected under the CRFA and under some state consumer protection laws as well. Statements of opinion, again, for example, I didn't like their service, are generally protected. False statements about facts, e.g., they lied about their product, could be a basis actually for defamation, and that could include libel or slander. So there are some steps that I do recommend you take before taking legal action for suing them for defamation. If someone leaves you a review that's completely far-fetched and untrue, these are the steps that I would take to resolve it. 1, reach out privately to the reviewer. So calmly contact your client about the review, politely ask them to clarify or remove the false statement. Oftentimes with just positive communication from you as a service provider, you may be able to resolve that issue directly. If you don't get a response back, a lot of times there's ghosting here, or if you're just not comfortable taking step 1, let's move on to step 2. Try to get it taken down through the platform. Most review platforms like Google or Yelp or Amazon do have policies against fake or misleading reviews. So you can report a review to the platform and ask them to remove it. You just may need to provide some evidence that the information was false, maybe some email communication, and maybe your contract as a whole, and that those services were indeed fulfilled. Number 3, respond professionally. Again, we're going back to the response situation. If you can't get a review taken down and it is completely false and untrue, you still need to respond to it politely. Respond with your truth to help others understand the inaccuracies of the client's bad review. I want to urge you here to avoid back and forth arguments. You need to show that you were willing to do or go above and beyond for the client, and really that's all. This way, others reading your response will see you as the true professional and will read between the lines of what that review is actually trying to do. I.e., it's a fake review, they're trying to damage your business and cause harm to you, and you were just a normal professional service provider. And number 4, possibly take legal action. Sometimes there are situations where it becomes so serious where maybe they leave one review and then they start leaving 10 reviews and then they have their family and friends leave reviews. And you've tried to follow all of these previous steps that I just said. You might want to consider lawyering up and sending cease and desist letters or filing suit for defamation. But remember, to prove defamation, you need to show 2 big things: that someone did indeed make a false statement about you that they claim to be factual. So you have to prove its falsity, which is one of the biggest uphill battles about suing for defamation. And you have to show that they caused you harm, injury, or loss to you. Not just emotional turmoil damage, but you have to usually show that you can provide actual proof and evidence that someone, like a prospective client, read that bad review and then told you they weren't going to book with you, but you were number 1 on their list because of that bad review. And you would need to have solid evidence in that respect. What am I trying to say here? Unlike disparagement, defamation goes beyond a client describing a negative firsthand experience. For example, if a client claims that you failed to show up to perform services when you clearly did, that would be disparagement. Or you stole or damaged property, which you would and probably never did. That is false reviews. Those are defamation. And again, there are several legal requirements to prove libel or slander, which are all under that defamation umbrella. So it really is a good idea to talk to an attorney about this issue if you are starting to feel like maybe a client situation is getting to that extent. Okay, so you want to prevent a bad review, but I've told you that you can't do it with a non-disparagement clause in your client contract, and probably a non-disparagement clause doesn't belong in a cancellation agreement between a client and a service provider, and non-disparagement clauses are best suited only between B2B relationships and worker relationships, so between an employer and an employee or an independent contractor. What can you do in a cancellation contract? There is a benefit of having a confidentiality clause in your cancellation contract. Let's get into that. So ultimately, if you are ending a relationship with a client voluntarily, between your client wanting to cancel for whatever reason, or you have to cancel the client and it's just not a good fit anymore, or you have some personal emergent reason that you're not able to perform the services and you need to move on from this client relationship. And then they threaten a bad review if you don't leave them or give them a full refund, even if you've already performed services up to this point. Or they're just threatening a bad review in general because you're canceling on them or they're canceling and you're not doing XYZ for them. In these situations, I absolutely recommend that you have your client sign a cancellation agreement. A cancellation contract or agreement, we call it contracts here at the legal page. Same again, contract and agreement used interchangeably. It's just one document that all parties are signing. A cancellation contract gives you options like keeping fees paid, partially refunding fees, or not refunding fees at all, and explaining why in your cancellation contract. There's various options that you can do here in terms of keeping all fees, partially refunding, or refunding everything. Our cancellation contracts at the legal page have all 3 options written out for you because it's a template agreement. You're going to have various situations whereby you may need one of these 3 options. And so you can use them time and time again for various cancellation situations. And although I have said time and time again in this episode that you can't include a non-disparagement clause in your cancellation contract, what should you have? I want you to have a confidentiality clause. No, a confidentiality clause unfortunately doesn't stop your clients from writing these bad reviews, but it does prevent them from sharing details about how you ended the client relationship and the agreement as a whole. So this means that they couldn't tell others how much you refunded them, the fees you kept, what services you did or did not deliver before that cancellation, so on and so forth. So this is really helpful to you as a business owner because you need to keep everything confidential. Depending on how you are ending that relationship, it's probably going to be different than how you ended the relationship with another client. Maybe you were able to give some wiggle room here because you didn't perform all of the services. So you were giving a partial refund above and beyond the retainer, that the non-refundable retainer that they paid. Or perhaps you aren't giving a refund of anything because, they're canceling within 14 days of the date and you have a massive opportunity cost. You're absolutely not able to book another client. And you want to keep others from knowing too much about the behind the scenes of your business. That's why confidentiality clauses are really important. And honestly, I feel like non-disparaging type of language can also be kind of subsumed within a confidentiality clause. So it's not just straight up saying, don't disparage me, and that's the heading of the clause, but it just really talks about how you're ending the relationship, the services that have been provided under the original agreement, and all of those things can need to be held confidential between all of the parties when we sign this cancellation agreement. And sometimes that's a really good way to incentivize clients to sign cancellation agreements. Like, I'm not going to give you a partial refund unless you sign this. And then they are bound to the confidentiality clause. And good news there, if they breach that, they're under breach of contract. You absolutely have a cause of action to sue on. So what's my take here? Legally speaking, I know it's a bummer, but you cannot use non-disparagement clauses to stop a bad client review in advance under your client contract. But you can strategically use a cancellation contract with a confidentiality clause in it that can keep your clients from posting a bunch of false information or posting about the actual termination as a whole. Of course, all of this is not ever going to stop a client from leaving a review that they want to leave. We can't control what other humans are doing, but a confidentiality clause can absolutely prevent them from sharing details about how the whole cancellation went down between you and them. Unfortunately, bad reviews are just sometimes a sticky part of running a business, but I don't want you to get too hung up on a bad review. As you continue to deliver great service, you will get through it. You've got this. You can respond to bad reviews appropriately. I promise that you can. I really hope that this episode was helpful to you and you can wrap your head around more why we suggest cancellation agreements in situations like this that have confidentiality clauses and why to avoid non-disparagement clauses under consumer protection laws in the United States and statewide as well. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out to me. You can find me at The Legal Paige on Instagram or thelegalpage.com. Thanks so much, and I will catch you in the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's show. Be sure to visit thelegalpage.com for contract templates, blogs, YouTube videos, and additional legal resources. If you haven't already, head over to iTunes and leave me a review and rating. It truly means so much to me to hear your feedback and inspires me to continue creating podcast content. Also, I want to personally invite you to my free Facebook group at tlpfacebook.com, where you will get access to me, my legal team, and thousands of other entrepreneurs in there for unlimited business and legal Q&A. Until next time, my friend.